Good morning from wherever you're watching us. This is a news check on this, the 24th of June 2025. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim. This morning we'll be focusing on when it comes to the 25th June planned protest that is tomorrow and public order in the wake of calling for accountability and transparency by Generation Z here in the country. Of course, you do remember what happened on Sunday over the weekend. That is where the Nairobi Regional Commander, that is George Seda, assured Kenyans of adequate security during the upcoming June 25th demonstrations to mark the first anniversary of the 2024 Occupy Parliament protests. You know, yes, on that particular same day, on Sunday, the All Saints Cathedral held an interdenominational prayer, remembering those people who lost their lives and those who were injured and who that are yet to be accounted for till to date. Of course, those were the prayers that were held there. And just yesterday, staggering reports that have been revealed by the Independent Medical Legal Unit, that is IMLU, that unveiled a deeply troubling pattern of excessive force by Kenyan police, not only during the 2024 Gen Z-led protests. The environment also, the organization says, is sustained by a persistent lack of accountability both at the individual and institutional levels. Now, some of the statistics they were able to release is that of course, the police were involved in 63 confirmed deaths, 63 abductions, 26 missing, over 600 injuries, and numerous documented cases of torture and illegal detention. Further, IMLU reported that a gendered aspect of that brutality is that those killed is 96% were male and only 4% were female, while similarly accounts of 88% of arrests and 87 abduction involved men, indicating a consistent pattern in past cases of police violence. Of course, all eyes will be tomorrow, and we await to see, given that the National Police Service has assured of the security of those people who will be taking to the streets. Also, any moment from now, we'll be crossing over to a press briefing where the men of cloth have called for a briefing, of course, calling for cooler heads to prevail. We'll hear more from that particular briefing. Also, keeping an eye on the Milimani law courts. You do remember yesterday the ODPP approved all charges leveled against the OCS of Central, the interdicted OCS of Central, that is Salam, and other officers who are linked to the death of Albert Ojwang. Today they'll be taking their plea. As and when we get that particular link, we'll be crossing over there live. Now, joining us this morning for this particular conversation is none other than Gibson Gisore, constitutional lawyer, Oscar Omondi, governance and public policy analyst. We also have Jack Matika. He is the Koinonia community expert, community development, children and youths. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. Also, a little bit later on, we will be joined by Immaculate Shamala. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Trans Nzoia Women Leaders Organization. Let me start to my left. Oscar, good morning and welcome to the show. Tomorrow, those Gen Zs are saying they're going back to the street, demanding for accountability. What do we expect tomorrow?
Good morning, viewers, and good morning, Kenyans, and thank you very much for inviting me, Abdi, to discuss a little bit about what is expected tomorrow. They are commemorating the June 25th, 2004, when Parliament was raided by a movement that was called Dub the Gen Zs, of young people who were going through a lot of grievances because of agitation to reject a finance bill 2024, which was later rejected and withdrawn by government. So they're commemorating this day, but today they're commemorating it not because of rejecting another finance bill, but because there are other manifestations that transpired during that particular event. There were killings of, I think from IMLU report you read, 63, I think 60 people died on that fateful day. And there are people who were abducted, and some of those people have not been gotten back to their families. For example, if they were dead, some of the families have not gotten their bodies back. So I believe this is about commemoration. This is not the first time we're having such a thing in the country. Commemoration, we commemorate Mashujadi for people who put their lives in line of fire by the colonialists in 1952, and we have Mashujaa Day, everything I remember about them. So if the organizers of this particular commemoration, it's in order, and you see demonstrations are allowed by law, Section 47 of our Constitution. So I think there's nothing serious, nothing big about this. I think they should be given their rights to do that. I think we just need to operationalize Article 37 so that demonstrations and protests which are protected by law are regulated. Ruku, I think the current CS Public Affairs had done a bill in Parliament to try to regulate demonstrations. So that we are aware that, for example, we should have known by today that which particular routes are going to be used by demonstrators, or which particular square. For example, if you can decide on Aga Khan Walk Square or the parking there, you secure it for demonstrators to do their demonstration, and we have an organized thing. The other thing, you know, we are going through this demonstration against a backdrop of the police being accused of use of excessive force after the death of that gentleman called Albert Ojwang. So the use of excessive force, and again this was seen last week when there were a bit of demonstration where somebody was shot on the streets. Now we are going against that backdrop. I think the police should be able to organize themselves and make sure that the demonstration is held and lives and property are protected. And if this one is, I think it is I think it's a possibility if we all become responsible, from the young boys who are going to the streets to the police who are going to manage this one. Why do you have to carry bullets to this? You can't carry rubber bullets. If they don't have it, then the states will buy them. We need to use things like pepper spray. You know, we have equipment that are meant for crowd control. But I think we end up using the wrong equipment for the wrong action, because I don't think if live bullets should be used for crowd control. So I think the retraining should be done, and actually we as Kenyans buy the right equipment for the police to be used as in such a protest. I think that is what I have to say for this. Okay.
And given that luckily we have a lawyer in the house, Gisore, when it comes to making sure the demonstrators are secured, they took their notice to the police. The police have said that the notice has been accepted and now it is secured. Now, tell us the legal backing of that. What does it mean for a demonstration to be secured?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me for this show on this very momentous occasion, just on the eve of the first celebration of the Gen Z protest, which happened last year. What you have asked is what legal processes are involved. The first process is what Oscar's mentioned, that you need to serve a notice to the police, which the police have since confirmed that indeed they received a notice. What has not happened is the police need to publicize to the general public that we have received this notice, and these are the routes which you want to secure for the demonstration, so that the general, not everybody will be demonstrating, so that the general public is well aware that these are the routes which will be used, so that somebody is able to plan around that area, so that if, for example, your office area is along the route, you're able to know how to conduct yourself. If you're able to use that route for maybe going to your office or going for a meeting, you should be able to change your meeting, because the crowd might be very huge. So that is the first process which police need to do, and the demonstrators have done their part by issuing the notice. The second thing is security. Police must be able to be in enough numbers to be able, with a plan, to provide security for the demonstrators and for the people who will be affected by the demonstration. And that has already been highlighted, that they need to have the right equipment and the right tools and the right mindset. I think mostly in Kenya we suffer from the challenge of mindset, whereby either from the demonstrators and the police, they don't have the right mindset or the proper mind to approach the demonstration with a sober mind, with the cool heads. That's what we need, because where your rights of demonstration end, my rights of securing my property start. So that is very important for us to note. And the right of the police also to provide security for the general people and for people's property is also very paramount. So once we be able to understand these dynamics, can be able to have a very successful maandamano. The route from where they start and where they end and the timings is also something which needs to be publicized, which needs to be in the notice, so that everybody is able to know between 11 and 4, this demonstration will be taking this shape and this is the road they will be using, and there will be enough security to secure these particular demonstrations. So if that is, these are planning, it's like planning an event. It's like planning a national celebration or planning any other thing. It should be treated in that particular same weight. If we can be able to look at it from that perspective, I think we can have very successful maandamano and even proper speeches. And then the leaders must be known, the leaders of the people organizing for purposes of planning. These are the people who will sit down with the police. What time will you want? How many people do you expect in this particular crowd? This particular route, are you going to talk to your people to be peaceful? Those are some of the things which we need to, so that they say, yes, we might have some demonstrators who might be out of hand. We pray that you may be able to restrain them peacefully, so that we can be able to have a successful manner. That is how planning for our demonstration should be able to be done. But as I've said earlier, in most cases you do realize that we do not have proper planning from the side of the police, from the side of the demonstrators. Then we end up in chaos and losing lives and losing property.
And Jack, as you also comment on that, you see the difference Oscar as well as Gisore is bringing out. Last year it was all about the finance bill. This year it's about police brutality. Where do we strike a balance?
Thank you, my host. And just to thank my counterparts, and I totally agree with their sharing. From where I stand and where I work with Koinonia community, which has been for the last 30 to 40 years championing peace and harmony among every nation in the world, and especially in Africa. That is where we stand as an organization. And as the entire nation wait for tomorrow demonstration, just like what my counterpart say, as Koinonia community, we expect a very peaceful demonstration. A peaceful demonstration that has no any violence weapon by the people demonstrating. And also to the police, we need them, just like what my counterpart says. We need a police that is basically who is able to provide security, to the people who are demonstrating. And they should not provoke the demonstrator. At the same time, the demonstrator should not provoke the police. Just like my counterpart says, basically we are a nation that basically need to plan well. And when we have such demonstration, everybody, as you say, our constitution, give everyone that particular voice to demonstrate, to air their voices. It's okay. And just like what he says, where you think your right ends is where other people's starts. So as they demonstrate, we need a very peaceful demonstration that is not violence, and the police basically should provide security and not provoke the people. As he talked about Article 37 that need to be regulated, of course we need, when people are coming to demonstrate. You see, why do we call Nairobi as the capital city? It is the most a place where most revenue are generated. And if we want a nation, a developed nation, and then we must ensure that we protect such areas. A capital need to be protected. And therefore, even if future demonstration need to be organized, where should this demonstration end? We need to have a spot where demonstration should be done. And capital city need to be protected. The people that are doing business, they need to continue their business, because at the end of the day, we want to see our nation developing. We cannot, as a country, cannot start politics from when election ends by people voting and we elect people. Immediately the nation starts campaigning and we start going out to the street, when will our nation develop? So as a nation, basically we need to organize, and everybody has you can't like my host, you can't like, not everybody likes you. You'll have people that you work with basically that they don't like you, but you have to come to a center where they have to accept who you are, beside your limitations, what you cannot do best, but all together, when you come together and share your views together in a place that is peace. So as we demonstrate and we are talking about issues that is draining Kenyan, yes, there are issues, but we must find a peaceful way to address those challenges that affect Kenya, not through violence. Because politicians, and with my little knowledge about politics, it is crazy. In Kenya, it is crazy when you talk about politics, because it is morning and evening people talk about politics. When do we talk about nation development? I think we need to grow. And as a nation, we cannot every time we come out to the street because of one and two. We need to sit down and address them in a very peaceful way. Yes.
Uzuri tuko na professor of politics here in the house, Oscar Omondi will be responding to that. But as you respond, Oscar, we are talking about lessons now. It is 1 year later. Do you think we have learned our lesson as Kenyans?
I mean, the question is, where did the Gen Z protest come from? It was because of rejection of the finance bill. Why? The question is, again, why has there been, because if you define what a social movement is, a social movement is an organized, not really organized, but it is people of like-minded coming together to agitate for a particular thing, mostly against a sitting government. For example, you know, in the US, we had something called the Black Lives Matter. That was a social movement. But the social movement ends immediately if that is implemented. When that policeman who killed Floyd, when Floyd was saying, I can't breathe, he was arrested and arraigned in court. That was the end of the Black Lives Matter social movement. The social movement that we had with the Gen Z, immediately the finance bill was rejected and the president said that we withdrawing the finance bill. That was the end of Gen Z movement. Even this party called ODM was born as a social movement. It was Orange Movement. When Kivuitu said that the people who are against the Constitution will be called, will be orange, and those people who are for the Constitution will be represented by a banana. But you remember, immediately Kivuitu announced that the orange side has won. The leadership of that social movement transformed it from a social movement to an organization. And Najib Balala was, I think, at KS saying, na hiyo chungwa itakuwa chama. So what happens is that when there's a social movement does not have a leadership, does not have a head and a tail. It has a flat type of leadership system where everybody is equal, as opposed to an organization where we have the chairman, the deputy chairman, the vice chairman, and all these people, a hierarchical way of system of leadership. So when it transforms from that thing called the leaderless or whatever to something with the leaders, that's why I'm asking these guys who went to police to seek for permission to do this demonstration. I don't know who these guys were, because if there are particular individuals who went to seek for demonstration from the police to be allowed to be demonstration, they become the leaders of the Gen Z movement. And then that means that the Gen Z movement is already transformed from a social movement to an organization, because it has a leader. If it has a leader, it becomes an organization. Without a leader, it is a movement. But the movement ends immediately when whatever action taken by this group of people who have like-minded have achieved whatever they were going for. So why did it not end? Why has it been continuous for the last 1 year? That is the question.
Yes.
The question is that sometimes I think the politicians or the political class, with their grandstanding, have taken advantage of whatever this thing stood for. Because whatever we are seeing now probably were not the intention of the Gen Z movement. The Gen Z movement in 2024 was intended to reject the finance bill, which was rejected. on, I think, on the 7th of July. It was rejected, and the president withdrew it. So the question comes, why did it continue until now? Because there were underlying issues, and the underlying issue that needs to be addressed is one which we need to have dialogue with the country. We have what we call youth unemployment. When we have, like last week, people have been complaining that there were goons who came to town to interfere with the Gen Z. No, I don't agree. For me,
okay, why don't you agree?
What I'm saying, these ones are just called goons, but they're also Gen Zs. The other ones are called protesters or whatever they are, Gen Zs. They just names that are given. Their problem is the same. The people who have work tomorrow will not go to streets. The unemployed, you want to call them goons, you want to call them Gen Zs, you want to call them protesters, you want to call them demonstrators, you can give them their names. But the problem that we have in the country, the underlying problem is youth unemployment. You know very well, when Kofi Annan came here, we had problems in 2007. In 2007, when we had personal violence. Agenda were 4. Agenda number 1, cease all the direct conflicts. Now, what was happening in Band Forest, Kondele and Madare and wherever, stop it. Agenda number 2, reform the police. Let's have a new constitution, reform IBC. Agenda number 3, land reforms, which were almost addressed. We had the police reforms, we had the Kligler report, we had the working report that investigated and found people who are highly culpable and were taken to the Hague, and all this. Agenda number 4 has never been addressed. Agenda number 4 is youth unemployment, because Kofi discovered that you can give a youth 100 shillings or 200 shillings to cause that mayhem. They were the people who caused it. And almost 20, no, that was 2007. In 2027, that will be 20 years. We've not addressed this issue. And you know, with the COVID, people, not just the youth, people lost jobs. Any country in crisis, the hardest hit group of people when there's an economic crisis are the youth. Because these are people who didn't even have jobs before COVID. You know, we lost Hilton Hotel, we lost, the hospitality industry went under. And people lost very many jobs. Now, the youth who were supposed to join the working system didn't join. And that is why we have thousands of youth on the streets. And you know, these boys are people who are engineers, some of them are doctors, some of them are lawyers, some of them are qualified mechanics, but they don't have jobs. In this country today, even to apply for a job costs around 10,000 shillings. Job application. It is very expensive to look for a job. Because for you to be certified by EACC, then Higher Laws Education Board gives you a certification that you don't owe them anything. Police,
CRB.
Yes, CRB, then costs another 1,000 shillings. Then police abstract, or what, 1,000 shillings. So all this, you need 10,000. Secondly, we don't even know where they are. We don't even listen to their voices. The youth, they are on spaces. Yes. So even if you get today, youth who are, they don't have tools. That is why when we should have something to do. Although some politicians have turned it to be handouts, whatever, because it's but those cautions should be there, so that anybody who wants to apply for a job, even transport, even photocopy. You know, people don't have money to photocopy. That is the realistic thing on the ground. And the problem that we'll see on the streets, it is mostly unemployment problem that needs to be addressed. And that is why, even after the finance bill has been rejected and the president withdraws it, the Gen Z movement is still going on. Reason being, that was not the problem. The problem was a different thing that we need to address, and many governments have come into place. Kibaki left, not addressing it, handed it over to Uhuru government. What Kibaki government did, took people to free primary education. So we have very many people going to school. Then Uhuru Kenyatta's government brought in something to do with free secondary education. So we have so many people getting to secondary education. Then now we have this government where universities and all these tertiary schools by Magoha and the rest, where you remember that Magoha thing, 100% transition.
Yeah.
So we're transitioning people to higher levels. Now they're transitioned, they're in the market. Now it is the work of this government that can you consume all these people? Yes. So we need things that are affordable, like affordable fertilizer is good because it puts many people into employment in terms of agriculture. We need affordable, for example, some of these people don't even have houses. Really. It is really, really, really bad. The situation is very bad.
Okay.
Can I interject?
Okay.
Okay. Just to interject in what my colleague says. I think I want to totally agree and accept because everyone has a right to opinion and everyone has to respect the opinion given. But just to touch on the issue of the protest that took place last week. Basically, we can see through social medias, that innocent young people were used just to cause chaos. That is what we totally refuse as a nation. Because if innocent people, youth, are being used basically to go outside for the benefit, for individual benefit, and that's where politicians are, because innocent people are used for the benefit of politicians. And when my brother was talking about organization and movement, we need to be a nation that has progressive movements and organizations, parties, because when we don't have this kind of institutions or movements, we'll be talking about development as a nation, but we'll always keep on crying and crying. So we need movements and organizations that are progressive. What we refuse completely as a nation is politicians using innocent youth to go outside there in the name of claiming for their rights, and behind there are individuals that are basically want to gain. So that's what we completely refuse as a nation. We are talking about we need conversation on the table. We need conversation that are progressive, that are for the development. When we are talking about education, we should not talk about education while we are on the street. And if you're on the street, it has to be a peaceful one, where you give everybody their right, So that's what we call. So I totally agree with his opinion, and I just wanted to interject.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, as you respond to the same, in terms of the freedom they have for the protesters, we're talking about the reforms that the David Maraga-led committee came up with. So in terms of ensuring that the police is reformed to the extent that it do not go back to where it was as a force, but to a service, where did we get it wrong in implementing some of these reforms to find ourselves where we are right now?
It's good you ask that question, Abdi. The police reforms never started. They never started. And that is, I think, what Oscar didn't highlight, that police reforms have never started, and that is the biggest challenge we have. In another show, I had to mention that the biggest challenge we have as in terms of enforcement of our constitution is that we have a police force or an arm of police which still behaves like the colonial government regime police. It's until that mentality is shaken off, we change police into a service, then they understand they are working for Mwananchi first before anyone else. They come from a community. We need to tell them that you come from a community. The community involves your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, and all that. One person was telling me that even if his Gen Z son joins Kiganjo today and becomes a policeman, in 5 years, if he meets him, he will not recognize him because of the training he will have gotten through. So it's very important as a people, we realize that this is the biggest problem. We have since reformed every arm of government. We have reformed the judiciary. We have changed the executive. We have 2 parliaments now. We have even the executive. We have CSS. We don't have ministers anymore. But the police are still the same. We only changed the ranks on top and the management structure. But the way of training, I don't think it has changed. The way of enforcing the command structure has never changed, and that's where the problem lies. Once we're able to sort that, we are able to integrate police to humanize them, because now they are a force which is used to hurt mwananchi. Once we humanize them and we tell them that you live in a community and you need to be able to work in tandem with mwananchi, to be able to even get information, to be able to even assist them. But what the situation currently as it is one whereby when you see a policeman, you run. A policeman knows that he has power over you just because he has a gun. So that gun is not used to protect mwananchi, it's used to scare mwananchi. And that is what the politicians love. That, you know, once I've joined the political class, then I have this body of the police, which if you play with me, I can use it against you. That I cannot be. That is why what my friend is highlighting here, that the youth now are being used to enforce private agendas, to be being used badly to be able to show might, to show power. Why will the goons be walking side by side with police, with the rungus? Honestly, what kind of system is that? That shows that there is somebody powerful who has brought these people to be able to be comfortable, and the police cannot be able to question them. The police should actually be arresting them. Why are you carrying rungus in a demonstration? This is our work. Why are you helping us with our work? But that didn't happen because there is somebody powerful behind. So when we leave this big man syndrome, whereby the police is being used badly or being told to keep quiet when they should be speaking, then we will be able to have a better country.
I think it's a bit from where we were coming from. There was a bit of reforms, not necessarily directly on the police service, though it was a service. Now we have IPOA, which was not there before, and to regulate whatever the police are doing. We also have laws. You remember, you know, you're a lawyer. When you became a lawyer before 2010 Constitution, somebody could be kept in police custody for more than 24 hours, which is not happening today. The police uniform has also changed. And now there are things that are...
You see, you are laughing.
I mean, what I mean by reforms, imagine tomorrow if the police in Nairobi are dressed in white. You know, that one alone, the change of color is branding, you know. It is different from whatever it was yesterday. Now, again, I don't like the G3 gun.
That's the cosmetic.
Yeah, because that G3 gun is too huge. I think the police who are managing like the town centers should be carrying pistols. They're more nice and more, I mean, to manage people.
For outlook.
Yes, just for the outlook. You know, the G3 gun is very scary. It's a big gun that if somebody carries it, and it's very heavy. I think it's 9 kilograms. So if you mean reforms, even the cosmetic reforms means a lot, because at the end of the day, we want to deal with attitude. For example, tomorrow, I think for the last 1 week, I've seen something the police do, because the police were beaten so much. The police in Nyanza took a trip to Abato Juang's house to say sorry to the family. That was good. The police in Central took a trip to that guy called Karaoke in Muranga, just to say, you know, when you're doing reconciliation between institution and the public, you can't get back people who are dead. If you read even the Truth Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, the way it was done, one, there was acknowledgement that we are sorry we led to your son's death. Number one, that's acknowledging. The most important thing. After acknowledging, then you ask for forgiveness. But you can't ask for forgiveness before you acknowledge. Most of the things, in terms of compensation, you can't compensate a dead person. They're dead. You can't get them back.
What about the family?
But the symbolic thing, even the family, the symbolic thing that tunapeana hii, we're just giving this one to say sorry. Not that we are going to resurrect the dead person. So the small cosmetic things, like for example, one of the things that I'll miss tomorrow in the demonstration, a public address. If we have a public address managed by the police, just to inform the demonstrators that the demonstration will be ending in the next 20 minutes. So if you want to finish up your things. Number two, the demonstration shall take this road to this road to this road, a public system, so that there's communication between the police or between the authority and the demonstrators. So there should be a big public address system managed by the police, so that we have controls. The people who are demonstrating in point B, that is not a demonstration area. Please, we are given 5 seconds or 10 seconds to move from that area to the designated demonstration areas. This is what happens in crowd controls in other parts of the world. There are police public address systems to control the system. But you know, whatever happens here, nobody knows where we're coming from and where we're heading to. Because there's no authority that's guiding the process. But if the police can take over, or the authority can take over the guiding of process, those ones are also that even the bylaws of the city, at the County Assembly of Nairobi, they should have bylaws that regulate how people demonstrate, how they are done, how they should be done. Not just the police alone. It should be police should maintain law and order. But the City Assembly of Nairobi should have how they want the demonstration to be done within the within the CBD. If it is probably some of the demonstration, you can say, okay, we are having Friday, and because it's Eid, and you apply for demonstration on Eid al-Fitr, and it is a holiday of the Muslim community, you're not allowed to do it. Just because of that, because today it will be occupied by people who are doing prayers on this particular street. So it is management of the municipal or the city council and the police, but the police are only supposed to do what? To maintain law and order based on bylaws that are done by Parliament and that are done by County Assembly. It can be done. And whatever has happened, I think reforms are things that, events that will take place, you know, for us to even get the new constitution. And the story will tell you, many people died. The Saba movements, people die in some of these things. When people agitate, for us to get a republic, Kenya, before 1963, a lot of people died in the process. When Southern Sudan wanted to get a republic, 2 million people were on their graves. Because this is what happens. In America, before they got a republic, you know, even before they banned the slave trade, a lot of people had died in the process. So they happen, but these events show us a lot of things. And I've told you, some of the things that need to be done is youth unemployment. If you have a public rally, forget about even the demonstration. If you have a public rally where Honorable Raila Odinga and William Ruto, for example, are signing some document in KICC, almost 500,000 youths will come because they're not employed. But that signing of that document should be able to be done even online, like it was signed, and we agreed, and the people get that document through their emails or through their dailies, and it is done. But you see, this dramatic thing sometimes, it also gives the police a lot of too much work because we don't have enough police. One of the things that where the goons were probably helping the police, the police could have said we were overwhelmed.
No. Do you? Where have we ever seen the situation where goons are helping out the National Police Service that is mandated to protect us?
Last week on Tuesday.
Okay, we'll revisit that. Okay, let me give Jack an opportunity.
I'm happy now he has confirmed that they were goons. Because through his first statement, he said those were not goons. So thank you for
no. What I'm saying.
Because what are the dangers of that? Because we've seen other countries going in a similar manner, and to date they have civil results.
Thank you, my host. Just to touch on the reform, I totally also want to talk about the police. As the lawyer said, I think we are still very much behind. Because my host, if I am, I have stolen from you, and then I run over there and then change my clothes, I come with a wife, I'm the same person, you know. So I have to change through the attitudes. So when we're talking about the reform, it's not only the police changing their uniform. It's not only the police, but I agree at some point at what you're saying, all this. We don't, it will not be enough for police just to carry a piston. You know, those are not enough. We need a reform police where we are talking about humanity. If they are going outside there to control the demonstrators, they should not carry, you know, live bullets. You know, they shouldn't. We need a country that is governed by law. And also, as we said before, also the demonstrators, you should not provoke the police. So we have to come in terms of agreement, you know. So this basically what we, and we don't want to go that further. You know, it's really shocking as a nation if we see today and we want to count for hundreds of people who died. We don't want people to die. We don't want any Kenyan to die because we want new reform. We don't want that. We need, yes. We need a nation that is sober. We need citizens that are sober. Yeah, police that are sober. So when we are advocating for a certain reform, let's advocate doing it in a peaceful way. The police need to handle the protester in a humanity way, where there is no life. We should not lose a life. And as he talked about politicians signing, they go sign those people, those document, paying these innocent people to come and view, see what they're doing. Those innocent youth are paid.
No.
Totally. We are living in this nation, and we know that. Yeah, so that's what we totally refuse as a nation. We need a nation that is sober, and all of us, because if today our country ban, where will you run to? Where will you run to? You go to Uganda, you become a foreigner. You go to Europe, you become a foreigner. So we are banned, even Tanzania. We ban our own country because of things we sit down on the table and we discuss them.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, let me just hit from there where he has left. When Said Barre was being kicked out from Mogadishu as the president of the Federal Republic of Somalia, people were celebrating. But ask them, those who are still alive right now, they will tell you that was the most stupid thing they did. They better had Barre there and had law and order and push for reforms while he's there. But as a country, what are we saying? Yes, I agree with Oscar that indeed the police are doing one or two things. They have changed their uniform. They have done 1-2 things. He needs them to have a pistol. But you see, a police with a bad mentality is a police with a bad mentality. Even if you give him a shotgun, he will actually be able to shoot even more people because it's lighter. So what we need to do is the training, the command responsibility. What is the orders? How are orders issued? How should police be held accountable? IPOA, he has highlighted IPOA. IPOA is a toothless dog. IPOA still thinks they are police. So even when the police is issuing a statement, IPOA is with them.
They apologize.
But they apologized yesterday.
How many days after? How many days after?
In fact, he said they were being used. You know,
like somebody who has a constitutional mandate, when he comes to the media and says he's being used, you wonder which office is he working? Does he know why he's in the office in the first place? That is where we need to start. We need to strengthen the IPOA office to be fully independent. We need to fund it to be able to do investigation, because I've dealt with IPOA. Those people are as toothless as they come. You will be surprised. There's nothing they actually do. That one is PR. There is a PR organization. They should actually be classified as a PR organization. How many police who have killed people, who have this successfully taken through court process? None. Or if there could be insignificant. They just mentioned for pressers, but thereafter, they even don't look for the evidence.
Okay, they are not here to defend themselves.
Yes, they are not here to defend themselves, but I was just trying to belabor a point that we need proper reforms, and reforms which can be able to harness these reforms which can be believable. If we continue with these cosmetic reforms which we are trying to praise or say that the change of uniform, we are not being true to ourselves. We just need to be very magnanimous as Kenyans and say, let's approach these police reforms from a very sober mind. Let's discuss this. Let's train our police better, because I also sympathize with the police. It's because the system they have been inducted into, and you really can't blame them. If you can be able to do away with that system, have a proper system where they become a service, they will be the best police. Kenyans are able to be the best of the things in the world if they are given the right apparatus, the right skills, and the right tools. If we are going to lose this country through the having some youth with rungus work with police, we're going to be Haiti. We're in Haiti to restore peace. We might end up being, Haiti might end up coming here to restore peace for us, or we might end up being Somali. That is where we need, as Kenyans, to be very keen and woke, that our constitutional reforms which we have, let's shepherd them to the very end the way we started. If we continue doing these shortcuts and fixing quick fixes, we are going to pay at the end of the day. The issue of the youth, if I might just come to that finally, which Oscar's highlighted. The issue of the youth, the Kibaki government had a plan. They had a plan where they needed to first give the tools, empower them with education. But Kibaki left before that process was complete. Somebody else was to be able to pick it from there and ensure. You remember the issue of the laptops. Kibaki ensured that when you joined campus, you joined with a laptop. And that is where we have, Kenya is now praised world over as an IT center. And then he ensured that there is broadband. That is youth smart policies, because he was looking into the future. The following regime was supposed to give primary kids the laptops. I don't think there's a kid who goes to school with a laptop right now. But you go to Rwanda, that is happening, and Ethiopia, that is happening. So we are remaining behind. The other third thing was to ensure that we have youth centers, ICT centers, where youth can go and do their thing and be able to earn online jobs. That has not been able to happen. So we have a critical mass.
But we do have the ICT hubs.
I have not seen them. For myself, I have not seen them. We need to have bigger ones which can be able to create an impact across the country. I think the last person who was speaking about that was Owala, and he was since kicked out. So we need to see this in every village, even in Turkana, even in Samburu, even in Lamu, so that we have these people be able to serve the world and be able to bring in foreign exchange, which can be able to help change our country.
Oscar, as you respond, how do we de-escalate the situation? Because we do not want to reach where Gisore and Jack are talking about. We don't want to become another country that is in turmoil.
No, we can't go into turmoil. Kenya is a country of educated individuals. Anybody can defend those things, like whatever I say that I said that they're goods. What about the police that also community policing? You know, I mean, involving, I mean, you've seen matatu touts controlling traffic sometimes.
Yes.
They're not traffic police. It is doing things alongside the police.
Yes.
So whatever happened, we're yet to understand. And we as researchers, we always say, sorry, that investigate first and know where did we end up with this one.
Where?
Yes, because we saw police alongside these people whom you call goons. According to the police, according to police, this might not be goons. This might be part of police community policing. Anyway, what I'm saying, that we cannot be able to continue like that. And I said that if everybody becomes the demonstrators, we need to regulate some of these things. And we need to regulate a lot of things. Most of the things, Gesore will tell you, who is a lawyer, that the Constitution has not been operationalized. Even when the JCs went and occupied Parliament, they were trying to invoke Article 1. And Article 1 says that when you feel that you're not represented by the people whom you elect to office like Parliament, themselves answer the how one can only be answered when Article 1 is operationalized. But it's documented that regulations, so that we answer the question of how occupied Parliament. Then now who becomes what? Even the right to seeing that demonstrations are never peaceful. To regulate the demonstration goes to actual regulate so that we can demonstrate. How expected to behave in the streets? Are they, for example, like the ones the demonstrators? Can there be defending chaos because we've not operationalized some of these things? So when we go, Parliament has work to do to operationalize most of these articles of the Constitution, so that we are able to know at what level, like in terms of demonstrations, they are saying that your right ends where my right starts. And it goes to issues of demonstration. I ran a shop in town, and then you come and vandalize my shop in the name of being a demonstrator. You know, this is criminality. It's not demonstration. Get me right? So as much as we want to talk about some of these things, we should hold on and let Parliament do their work so that even the police are aware, because at the end of the day, those cases where you use excessive force, if it goes to court and they get good lawyers, those police get good lawyers, they will be free because, yes, I shot him. And why did you shoot him? It's because he was a criminal. He was vandalizing shops. There's nothing I could do about it. He was a thief. You know, he was not a demonstrator. They can defend themselves. So when you're looking at it, yes, we sympathize with the situation, but again, if we go down to courts and go where Gesari and the rest sit, you will see everybody have their rights. Everybody might have justified their causes. Remember, how do we define a state? A state is the only institution that has the monopoly to use violence. Legal violence. Legal violence, not illegal violence. But they have the monopoly to use illegal violence. They can shoot you. The police can shoot you. Legally, they do. And they walk away with it because they are not only allowed to use excessive, unnecessary force. Unnecessary, excessive force. But how do we define in the situation he is in? He can say that that boy whom he shot had a knife, which they can probably bring in court, for example. So it is a very difficult situation that we are in. What will help us if we operationalize demonstration, because we lose too many lives we've already lost in this demonstration. Unnecessary lives but are being lost because even the people who are shooting people, like for example, these people who shot people in front of Parliament, the police, I think at some level refused that those are not police officers. So who are they? Were they private gun holders?
Okay, where did you get that information? Because we do not have it. And at the end of the day, the information
the police are on record denying that they've never abducted anybody, for example. One of the things that we are just seeing in the streets is abductions.
Let me debunk.
No, wait, because we need to pay some bills and then we'll come back with this conversation. Don't worry, I'll give you a chance to continue to rebuttal. And of course, that is a conversation we're having this morning. If you want to talk to us on a social media platform, it is at KBC Channel 1 and at Abdiaziz Hashim 2. We are also keeping an eye on Milimani Law Courts. Any moment from now, we'll be taking you there live, given that the case of Albert Ojwang and the interdicted police officers at Central Police Station, including the OCS Talam, will be taking place. So do not go too far. That and so much more on the other side. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Our topic continues. It's all about politics and governance, especially when it comes to youth matters. Also, we were focusing on what is set to happen tomorrow at the end of the day when it comes to the planned protest of the 25th, remembering or commemorating all the victims of police brutality during last year's Gen Z-led protest. Also, in the matter of public order, while doing the same demonstrations, you do know what happened last week, Tuesday. Just last week, what happened on the streets of Nairobi. Also, the police have confirmed again, the Nairobi Regional Police Commander, that is George Seda, has assured Kenyans of adequate security during the upcoming June 25th demonstration to mark the first anniversary of the 2024 Gen Z-led protest. Let me go back to Jack, given that we had a little bit of a heated conversation here. Jack wanted to report to. Jack, also, while you respond, I asked Oscar, who deflated that particular question when I asked him to, when it comes to de-escalation of the situation, what can the police do and the protesters do to de-escalate that tension?
First and foremost, I thank Oscar and then also the lawyer. I think what the opinions, we basically respect the opinions. And what we expect tomorrow, we expect a very peaceful demonstration. We expect these young people, coming out, not being influenced by any political side. Because one thing these young people should know, those politicians, they basically want something for themselves. And they will never get once those politicians have received what they wanted. So for the demonstration they are doing tomorrow, it is a demonstration they are asking for a good governor good policy reforms, it's okay. And what we are asking, we need a peaceful demonstrators. We don't need demonstrators coming, with the stones, with any kind of weapons, when they're demonstrating. And then from the side of the police, we want the police also to give security, because the work of the police is to maintain law and order. So we ask them to give the people protesting security, be with them during this protest. And we also, just like the lawyer said, we need this kind of protesting. The duration, it needs to be regulated. We cannot have people protesting or young people protesting from morning to evening. There are people who basically need to go and need to work, So as they come, at the end of the day, they want to go home and they want to get food or put something at the table. So let them come do peaceful protest, and then after, let them walk back home peacefully. As I said before, this country belongs to all of us. We need to protect it. And at the same time, we need to forge way forward so that we have development for our country together. When you talk about education, you talk about the police reform, all this kind of thing that we ask our president, basically to lead us to, in a very peaceful way, definitely we'll have a better nation ahead. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, I would want to start by correcting Oscar. I'm Gisore, not Gesare. Gesare is our lady. I think you write that. So, basically what we are saying is the fact that we need police accountability. We need police accountability, and demonstrators, also leaders, should be able to account. What Oscar was saying, that if he runs a shop in town and people are busy trying to steal from his shop, that is the role of the police. That's why police should be there to ensure that there's safety for your property, there's safety for everyone else, even a passerby. You don't assume that even somebody passing by is interested in the mandamano. He might not. You could be going to see some services in an office. So that person should always be given security to always have his way and go do his own thing. That is what we are talking about. Where you respect my right, I respect yours. Where yours end, mine start, so that we can be able to have a cohesive. Where a policeman is able to do his job with the right skills, with the right mentality, then we need to also have demonstrators who are having the same spirit. That is not too much to ask. That let everybody be accountable for their actions. Let's not blame one side. We can even see clips of police just shooting an armless person whose hands are up. Then you go for the head. So those are some of the things which we are condemning and asking that let those people who are involved be taken through a process which is a judicial process which can be able to have them answer for their questions. The other thing we are saying is that as Kenyans, let's be proud of our country. Let's not rejoice when I'm demonstrating and then I rob Oscar's shop to deprive him of his livelihood. That kind of patriotism is what sometimes we lack. But where do we get there? It's what actually Oscar had also highlighted, that it's because of joblessness. We can call people, they come 500,000 of those. These people have not eaten. These people, others have become, they didn't actually come for the demonstration. They're looking for something to eat. As a nation, if we can invest in the bare minimum, ensure that our people are well fed, our people are well educated, our people are well medicated, our people have jobs. If we can be able to have youth smart policies which can be able to shepherd our country to a level whereby people are able to talk from a position of civility, from a position of understanding, some of these things will just disappear by themselves. So we will not have some of the challenges. Some of the challenges we are facing is because our government has, from time to time, has been able to invest in policies which are taking away from the youth or not adding value to the youth, instead of investing in policies which can be able to give back and be able to empower the youth to become people who can be able to contribute back to the economy.
Okay. And of course, joining us right now, I'll give you a chance, Oscar, do not worry. Immaculate Shamala, she is the Chief Executive Officer of Trans Nzoia Women Leaders Organization. Shamala, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And the topic is that, Shamala, in terms of bringing public order, but I want you to pick it up from where Gisore has left it. When it comes to governing the youth, where have we gone wrong in terms of governing the youth? And are we giving them an ample listening ear to their concerns?
Thank you, and good morning, Kenyans. And good morning, fellow panelists.
Good morning.
Apologies for running late, but I want just to say we see you, the youth. We see you. We cannot pretend we understand, because the dynamics are different. Our times and your times, probably there's some difference, but there are some similarities that we went through even as youth. In terms of joblessness, I mean, that is a global issue. It's not a Kenyan issue. It's global that joblessness are there. It is a real issue. In terms of, sometimes you not being heard and we thinking where we are seated in our spaces that we can think for you. I think the Constitution of Kenya is very progressive, and it has given the youth of Kenya the opportunity to speak, the opportunity to even vie, opportunity to tender themselves up, and say we can make good leaders than the people who are ahead of us. And so that democratic space, if it is well utilized by the youth, we will leave something that I'm a bit very skeptical to say, but let me say it, that we will leave the victim syndrome that we are in. That we are the youth, we are being victimized. We can get from the victimization and step into a space of saying we can do better than what you think. And so I'm not saying that the call of the youth, they are not listening. Probably we are not communicating to one another. Probably our values as a country are only written, but they are not internalized. And values don't start by writing. Values start by practicing back at home. And so it goes back to parents. What values are we instilling in our youth so that they can grow listening and communicating? Because even when they go to the streets, that's communication. That's a way of ventilation. But then what values would we have brought better to get a good, solid adult who is able to speak without throwing a stone, speak without shouting, speak without showing the middle finger, speak without insults? So is it a reflection of us elders? Is it a reflection of us adults that we have failed to inculcate something to the youth? However, there's still time. The youth can still be listened to again if they're structured, organized, and also making sense. Because some of the things, if they're not making sense, then also it becomes nonsense.
Okay. Oscar, as you respond, we're also talking about what Immaculate is saying. There is a generational gap. Then how do we bridge that generational gap to ensure that this generation understands the other?
I think some of the solutions that we have, to be honest, the youth's voice have been lost. Because we have sometimes a top-down system of government that we at some level think that those people want this, then we press them on that. For example, I've told you, the spaces where the youth operates, we should be able to get to know where they operate and what do they want, so that their voice is not lost. For example, remember when we started the Gen Z protest, the youth were very clear. Honorable Raila Odinga, leave us do this alone. When the other team, I think Gachagua and all these other people tried to come into their protest, and even other political class, all of them were shut down at some level. Not even an MP could address these gatherings. No politician could address these gatherings. Not even the clergy, whom they felt that everybody is going to take over this system from them, because they knew the grievances we want to address are our grievances. And the elite and anybody in that particular system who has been amazed should not come and address our issue. I'm sorry, one down the line, it was overtaken. But they really tried to protect it. By all means, the youth was struggling that let us protect this one so that we are able to deal with government. You remember when All Saints Cathedral, there was a prayer, then a young boy came and said, reject finance bill, because he was showing that the authority does not represent our feelings. We can represent them themselves. They want to be at the table. For example, you know, in political systems, people who are 50 years, I don't know why we see them as young people, as the youth. We don't have a, do we have a CS who is below?
PS.
We have a PS,
yes,
who is around.
Yes.
Yeah, but we don't have a CS. You don't have a CS level who is
Eric Muga.
Okay, it's a mix of it, but still,
is the only
but
one.
still, what I'm saying, that we need somebody. But again, you know what happens is that when the youth, for example, sit down in Majengo, they elect one of their own to be an MCA. 1 year down the line after that election, they feel this person does not represent their interests. This person is accountable to capital and probably the elite. So they still feel left alone. And this one brings in frustration. And such frustrations can lead to aggressive behavior sometimes. I think we need to listen more to these people and get to where they are. For example, I'm sure tomorrow's demonstration will be controlled only because it is announced. But most of these demonstrations have been happening when even the government does not know. People don't even know that you are caught up with the demonstration. Tomorrow, not many people will even come into town, for example. People who don't have business in town will not come into town. Simply because it is known that on 25th of June there will be a demonstration. But sometimes when these youth go into spaces and discuss where other older elites are not able to access, then you end up getting caught up in a demonstration you didn't know was happening in town. But if we get to listen to their problems, to know what they want, and it's not just the youth in political spaces, even in our own homes, like she said, even in our own homes, we've had problems of young people committing suicide because they feel they're not listened well at home. We've had situations where serious problems of arson attacks, which I've one time investigated what causes arson attacks in secondary schools. They were banning dormitories. Why were they banning dormitories? They were banning dormitories with a political discussion that we hate being in boarding school, because boarding school to them, they didn't ban their classes, they didn't ban their books. They were just banning the dormitory because they don't want to live there. Because those spaces are not, they have bad experience in those spaces. They
become toxic.
Yes, they become toxic on them, and they end up being frustrated, and they end up having an aggressive behavior. For example, if you go to a boarding school, Abdi, and you lose a plate, you know you can miss meals simply because of just losing a plate. You know, people lose things like, essential things like mattresses. And if you lose a mattress, what do? It becomes very frustrating to a level of inviting other people that we need to ban this school. And they end up banning the entire school. But if you look at the real cause of this thing, somebody just lost a plate or somebody lost a mattress. You know the Arab Spring, what brought it? Some gentleman whose wares were taken by the council. Yeah. And then he was selling in the streets because he had an education. Yes. But he was selling bananas on the streets of Tripoli. And then the Askaris took his bananas away. Then what did he do? He took petrol on his head and burnt himself because he was frustrated. Then that was a trigger. And now we had problem in Egypt, up to Yemen, the whole entire Arab Spring. So whatever we've been experiencing, these people are waiting for a trigger. And the June 25th, 2024 reject finance bill was a trigger to other grievances that were going on in society. And I've told you, some of these boys and girls have medical degrees, some of them have law degrees, some of them have engineering degrees, but they cannot get access to money. Not even money to prepare the documents to apply for a job. They're frustrated to a level where they don't apply for jobs anymore because they've tried to apply for jobs and they're told that hizo zimetangazwa kwa gazeti, already some people have been taken in those particular jobs. So it becomes very frustrating to have an education without a job, without money, and are we really listening to deal with these scenarios and it cannot be the president's only solution. We need a solution of even the corporate world. The people who are losing businesses in Nairobi town must be part and parcel of the stakeholders of solving that. Can you take one youth? Can you take two youths? They don't have to be in your space. You can pay for a youth to work elsewhere. but only if a good government have initiative to deal with youth unemployment. And it must be intentional. And I've told you, my main thing is, when the economy is in crisis, the hardest hit people are the young people. And when they get frustrated, then it will run amok. It will even get back, because at the end of the year again, we have another 1 million probably coming out of these tertiary systems.
They will burn the dome,
They'll
which
burn
is
the-
us.
So,
Yes,
so
Abdi.
as you respond to what Oscar is saying, and Immaculate, when it comes to that generational gap and how do we bridge it at the end of the day, we're talking about these regulations that you see we have been talking here about it. Are we at that particular certain, where we are saying that our constitution, our certain articles that do guide demonstrations and how people should act accordingly should now be regulated?
We are not at that place, and this is the argument I've been trying to dispel, apparently the whole day today. Our constitution is well, alive and well. We have not outlived it. What we have not done is to live up to the constitution. When we live up to the constitution and we are able to let it flourish and let it have a life of its own, then we can be able to enjoy the benefit. Remember, if you plant a tree, you don't expect the fruits there tomorrow. You need to water the tree, you need to prune the tree, you need to give some nutrients to the tree for you to have a good harvest of good fruits. For our constitution, yes, we planted the tree. We don't need to cut it down. That, this tree is now useless. We don't need to act frustrated again around our constitution. All we need is, a constitution cannot work by itself. And this is where I'm coming to compliment what Oscar is saying, that as a country, we need to sit down and realize the potential we have in our youth and be able to cultivate it. That is how we grow the tree. That is how we are able to get fruits in the future from the youth, by investing in the youth. Our government, with the financial constraints, the people who suffer are the youth, because they get the least, they get the short end of the stick. From the parent side, they have been dealt with a bad hand. And how do we reconcile these things? How do we embrace these things? In the morning, I talked of what Nelson Mandela said. A developed or a civilized society is one which recognizes the weakest. It's actually recognized how it deals with their weakest. The weakest are the youth. The weakest are the people in hospital. How do we deal with our people in hospitals? How do we deal with our people with disabilities? Okay. How do we deal with all these issues? We need to have clear policies which enable the constitution to work well. We can't have a constitution and just rely on it. We need to have policies to supplement. For example, the issue of having youth smart policies is something which we ought to have a youth policy. Because it's going to be 80% of the population, and we are not prepared around it. There is something under the Sustainable Development Goal which we call intergenerational and intragenerational. That is how we communicate from one generation to the next. Previously, in the ancient times, or even now, the skills were passed down to the next generation through stories in the evening, in the fireplace. How do we communicate nowadays as parents? WhatsApp via calls and such things. There is no direct relationship. So we have dealt with our kids with a bad hand. Then there comes a government which is also aloof, which is not coming up with policies which can help, can inspire faith, and which can put trust in that they are going to have a life. You advertise for 10 positions, you get 3,000 applicants. What does that tell you? There's a problem. We need to create more spaces for youth to be able to actualize their skills which they have learned. And these skills they have learned because we have invested in them. Now we need to actualize it by ensuring that they have spaces where they can work. Okay. If we can be able to do that as a government, we can be able to actually be able to skyrocket from the position where we are as a third world country to a first world country. Let me just give you one last example, Abdi. Germany, after the Second World War, a lot of young men were killed, and even the old men, because they were forced by the dictator then Adolf Hitler to join the military. So they died. So when they died, Germany realized we are having a crisis. What do? We are having a lot of young women and children. The women went to the streets, they became masons, They started cleaning their town, and Germany, within a very short time, was able to rise and become the superpower that it is. So we need to use the youth to be able to develop ourselves, not to abandon them.
Okay, Jack, I'll be coming to you in just a few, and as well as Immaculate. Let's go back to our conversation that we're having. I was given a chance, I wanted to give it to Jack. Jack, earlier on we were talking about not only about escalating the situation, the reforms being made, and of course bringing, acting as a bridge between the two generations, as what Gisore here alluded to. But in terms of ensuring that the youth are heard, what should be done to ensure that their concerns are not only heard but addressed?
Thank you. Thank you, my host. Basically, I want to agree with the lawyer that we have an intergeneration gaps that basically we need to understand. And for this reason, basically, this nation, our nation will need youth policy. And when we have this, basically, we'll have a policy that basically guide us, you know. And so it is something that basically, as a nation, we need the Parliament, basically, as they are mandated, they need to basically act on this as soon as possible. This will help us as a nation to avoid so many issues that basically affecting us now. And then, of course, we are aware we have so many injustices that has happened, as my colleagues already shared and Madam already said. But as per now, basically, what we call for is how can we embrace what we have. We try to call for peace and dialogue so that we basically try to address those injustices. We are talking about, there have been a problem many years back about youth and unemployment, all these kind of things. Right now, it is a reality, but we need to approach them in a way that is not of with violence. You know, we need to approach them in a very peaceful manner so that we basically have a peaceful nation to live. I also want to advocate that it is important to, as the youth basically come on the street, basically let's all remember that this is a nation that belongs to all of us. And all those politicians also let them keep in their mind that we have no any other place to go. This is a nation that belongs to all of us. And these young people, basically, we must handle them also with care, as also police will basically work with them, you know, during their procession. Let's handle them with care and also love, just like our madam, you know, shared with us. And as from where I come from, Koinonia community, we basically advocate for what I'm saying here. We basically envision a nation that is very peaceful, a nation that has development, that respect its people, and give opportunity, you know, to the young people. And of course, I have faith with the current, basically also the government, given an opportunity, because you have to be given an opportunity. If you don't give me an opportunity, basically to show you what I can do, and then you'll never know what I can do better. So I believe that we need to trust the system that we have. And as the lawyer said, this system also has to work. You know, we might be having documents that we don't need to change anything. We need to implement what we have. We are talking about that their demonstration that the constitutions allow, but we need a demonstration that is organized. Police are giving the demonstrators security, and they know at what time they start and at what time they end. And they also know as much as they demonstrate, that is their right, and there's also right for the people that are not demonstrating. So if there are other people that are just on their normal business, you should not basically criminalize them and say, or you start throwing tear gas or chasing them away. So we call for peace as they plan for this kind of demonstration tomorrow.
Okay, let me head over to Immaculate. Immaculate, you heard what the gentleman here is saying. In terms of ensuring, what should the authorities do to build back the trust? What is that first step they need to take to rebuild trust with the youth?
I actually don't see it as a government issue. Because the government is not an incubator of helping the child to grow. We had traditions. And if I'm not wrong, our traditions used to say that a child is a child of the community. Where did we go wrong? Where did we individualize a child to be my child? It used to be our child. And when a child did something wrong, the whole community was able to assist that child to see what is right. And so we are giving the government a product that has already been somehow injured at a formative stage, and we expect the government to take charge. We are using issue on joblessness, but the real issue is our upbringing of our children. We are the ones who go to schools to tell teachers, listen, leave my child alone. You know? And so I think we must just be honest as Kenyans and reflect that what kind of children are we raising? These are the products. I'm not saying resistance is bad. They are not the first youths to resist. Our history has been a history of resistance. Even Mau Mau were young. They were young boys and girls. They weren't old. So it's okay for the resistance. But I think we need to go beyond the issue of looking at the government to solve everything. This has to start from our households. How are we raising our children? We must raise them, and I like when we say we are listening, we should listen. And I'm asking myself here, how best do we listen? You know, how can you teach a parent to listen? I think also the youth have to give us some latitude here. They also need to, like, let us know what is it. And when you say there's this issue, I suppose you also have to say these are the solutions. Because we can have the best documents, we can have the best policies, we can have the best everything. We can have even a youth president. But these institutional systemic issues cannot just end with a person. It is a software that this country should deal with. And the software does not start now. I am looking at even our curriculum. Is this curriculum really resonating with the times? We need to look at a curriculum that also, yes, there's rights, yes, there's everything, but then these rights are not privileges or they're entitlements, but they come with responsibility. And so when we're seated here, panelists, also, we have to ask ourselves, we have also to challenge the youth. Like, listen, you are saying you want this. How far do you want to go with this practicality? In fact, I was just seated in coming. I said, I think we need to also give them one day space to be a governor. One day. One day to be a president. One day to be such and such. And they see the weight that comes with leadership. I am recognizing, and I'm sitting here saying, I recognize the struggle of the youth. But the struggle should not just end in struggling. We need to have practical solutions. And then intergenerational dialogues are good, but then we are living in a fast lane world. I don't see my children. You don't see, in fact, we talk over the phone, isn't it? And so probably it's important we start having a measure right from home. At what extent about the technology stop? Come, let us have a conversation. When Wakili was saying we sit under the fire, remember our grandmothers nowadays know English. Your grandmother and my grandmother did not know English. But the grandmother of now, when you speak, they will respond in English. That means that also the grandmothers that we have now might not be very clear with the values and traditions that were there. For me, I still believe that all is not lost. Let's go back in time, review and just take back a step and say, where are our values and traditions as a people?
Where do we move from here?
I mean, one of the biggest problems that I think the current authorities are facing is management, governance, and governing an age of social media, where we have a lot of fake news and misinformation. Sometimes we sit down to discuss issues, then we realize that, that was fake news. I remember 2 weeks ago, Governor Gladys Wanga even wrote a protest letter to the government that we just had Madaraka Day in Homa Bay. Now a youth from Homa Bay has been killed. Then the youth turned out to be a karaoke from Muranga because of fake news. Fake news I'm saying the government does not have to infringe on people's spaces. But still, we need to have a system where we are able to regulate harmful news that goes out there. There's a lot of fake news out there. Because the information that we consume is not always factual. And we make decisions and hasty decisions based on this thing. For example, when somebody, the boy who was shot, the masker, the guy who was selling masks, he didn't die. But you see the first news that was there that he was shot dead. So there are people who went protesting against him being shot dead. And probably somebody will be shot dead protesting because they suspect a friend of them was shot dead. And they get shot dead also. But just being shot dead because of fake news of somebody who didn't even die. So you've done for a wrong cause. So I think we should be able to have a system. It is difficult. And also sometimes when people compare Mwai Kibaki's government and probably William Ruto's government, I say this is different times.
Yeah, it is.
Different times and different issues are coming with us. Mwai Kibaki was implementing free primary education. And I've told you, Uhuru Kenyatta came to start implementing free secondary education. William Ruto is expected to implement all these people into the job market. And again, in terms of social media, in terms of fake news. Trump said one time that he lost elections due to fake news, not to Biden. And when he came after 4 years, he said, I told you there was fake news. And he won that election now. Because there's no fake news. Listen to me. Don't listen to the Facebook and all these people. And they blocked him from Facebook. And this is a phenomenon that happened in first world country. One thing, even if we bring in a new president, a new government, if we still have uncontrolled, I'm not saying that we control, but we need to regulate harmful, we need to have measures. Harmful content is out there. For example, what we are listening about the nuclear being the environmental degradation. You see, that type of news is not important to Kenyans. But this is causing cancer in Marsabit. It will not appear in news headlines today. What will appear is some emotional thing that we have the Gen Zs. The media sometimes try so much to heighten emotions of people, and they're fueling it. They're fueling that because tomorrow, I think, we are talking about peaceful. But other media houses, if you see what they're doing, they're bringing those people, oh, I have a bullet. Yes, somebody has a bullet in there. But now we have to de-escalate, at what you say. We also have to take responsibility, all of us. We have to de-escalate and say that, okay, this one happened. But where do we go from here? Do we need to go tomorrow and lose other lives? We know those guys have not been compensated. But the ones who will be killed tomorrow, who will compensate them? Can we have a system where we are able to be responsible, all of us, and allow the right thing to be done so that we save the whole society? If you see countries like, for example, when we were going for election in Tanzania, you know the media, the internet was shut down. Uganda shuts down media a lot of times. Togo does it. Ethiopia does it. Yes, they lose billions of shillings when you shut down the media. But sometimes it saves some lives. I don't support that one shut of internet. But still, there comes a time.
Something has to be done.
Something has to be done. Some radical decision has to be made that, let's shut it down and let's make sure that lives are not lost so that at least we have the people tomorrow to have a discussion with. You remember when Uhuru Kenyatta was running this country during lockdown? It was done very well. And we said, yes, we need the businesses. But we need this life so that they have business tomorrow. We will do a lockdown. Tomorrow we are sorry. And lockdowns were done to save lives. So sometimes governments have to make radical decisions which are unpopular with the people. But at the end of the day, if you look at the bigger picture, it is much, much, much better.
Okay. And before I come to you, we want to go to Kisumu. We want to collect some pieces. Then I'll come back to you. I know you're itching to respond to your friend Oscar here. Okay. I'll give you that chance. Now let's head over to Kisumu County,